Captain Jake Reeves stumbled through the airlock of Nexus 7 station, coffee in one hand, duffel bag in the other, and absolutely zero enthusiasm for whatever fresh nightmare awaited him at the Galactic Combat Academy. He was already 20 minutes late, which in military time meant he might as well have shown up next Tuesday. The orientation hall buzzed with nervous energy from about 30 alien cadets, all of whom looked like they could bench press a small moon. Jake took one look around and immediately regretted every life choice that led him to this moment. Standing at the front of the room was what could only be described as a dinosaur having a very bad day. "I am Drill Master Vexithok," the 9-foot reptilian creature announced, his voice carrying the warmth of a nuclear winter. "For the next 6 weeks, I will break you down, rebuild you, and quite possibly eat your remains if you disappoint me sufficiently." Jake slipped into the back row, trying to blend in with a group of insectoid creatures who looked like they were already planning their own funerals. "The universe is not your friend," Vexthok continued, pacing like a caged predator. "It does not care about your feelings, your culture, or your adorable little friendship bracelets. In combat, there are no allies, no mercy, no second chances. Only the strong survive, and the weak become lunch." One of the insectoids, barely 3 feet tall with twitching antennae, raised a trembling appendage. "Excuse me, sir, but what about tactical cooperation and—" "Silence!" Vexthok's roar could have shattered glass. "You are Pip, yes? From the Chitinian hives? Your species survived through numbers, not strength. Here you have neither." Jake watched poor Pip deflate like a punctured balloon. Nearby, a crystalline being named Thorn sat perfectly still, probably calculating the statistical probability of survival. On his other side, an energy creature called Zara flickered, with what Jake assumed was either confidence or barely contained panic. "Your final trial," Vexithok announced with obvious pleasure, "will be 72 hours in the Crucible arena. Alone, no assistance, no alliances. You will face apex predators, environmental hazards, and your own pathetic limitations. Most of you will fail spectacularly." Jake couldn't help himself. "Wow, what a motivational speaker. Do you do birthday parties too?" The entire hall went silent. Vexthok's head swiveled toward Jake with the mechanical precision of a targeting system. "And you are?" "Captain Jake Reeves, human military advisor. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was murder. Literally, I think I saw 3 ships get vaporized on the way in." Vexthok said the word like it tasted bad. "Your species has a reputation for pack behavior, weakness disguised as cooperation. You will find no friends here, Captain Reeves." "Well, that's a shame," Jake replied, settling back in his chair. "I brought friendship bracelets for everyone." If Jake thought his sarcastic introduction would earn him a quiet 6 weeks of training, he was spectacularly wrong. Vexthok seemed to take personal offense to Jake's existence and made it his mission to prove that humans were the galaxy's greatest mistake. Day 2 began at 0500 hours with what Vexthok cheerfully called Survival Obstacle Course Alpha. Jake watched as cadets were launched through spinning death traps, acidic mud pits, and what appeared to be a maze designed by someone with serious anger management issues. "Reeves," Vexthok barked, "you're up. Let's see how human cooperation helps you navigate this alone." "Human." Jake studied the course, noting the placement of swinging hammers, flame jets, and the occasional spike pit. "Looks fun. Does it come with a warranty?" The first obstacle was a series of rotating drums over a pool of something that definitely wasn't water. While other cadets had tried to power through using brute strength, Jake simply waited, timing the rotation pattern. When the drums aligned, he strolled across like he was walking through a park. "Lucky," Vexthok muttered. The flame jets were next. Jake watched the pattern for 30 seconds, then grabbed his water bottle and started squirting it at the sensors controlling the flames. Half the jets sputtered out, creating a clear path. "Cheating," Vexthok growled. "Problem solving," Jake corrected, jogging through the disabled course. By day 5, Jake had befriended half the class despite Vexthok's strict no-alliance policy. Pip turned out to be incredibly intelligent when he wasn't terrified, Thorn could calculate trajectory angles that made Jake's head hurt, and Zara could provide light in dark spaces. During meal breaks, Jake found himself naturally organizing study groups and sharing tactical insights. "Your human is corrupting my cadets," Vexthok complained to his assistant, a nervous amphibian named Glub, who mostly communicated through worried croaking sounds. "Perhaps, sir, the cooperation is actually effective," Glub suggested, immediately regretting his words. Vexthok's response was to design increasingly impossible individual challenges. Underwater navigation while being chased by electric eels, free climbing a cliff face during an artificial earthquake, hunting holographic prey that could fight back. Jake passed them all using increasingly ridiculous methods. He used his belt as an eel lasso. He surfed the earthquake tremors instead of fighting them. He convinced the holographic prey to follow him by mimicking their mating calls, which apparently worked across species barriers. "This is getting embarrassing," Jake told Pip after another successful exercise. "I'm starting to think your drill master has some serious issues." "He comes from the Vextheran warrior caste," Thorn explained in his crystalline voice. "Individual combat prowess is literally their religion." "Yeah, well, my religion involves teamwork, pizza, and occasionally teaching apex predators to sit and stay." This proved to be a mistake. Vexthok overheard the comment about apex predators and got that look in his eyes that suggested someone was about to have a very bad day. "Captain Reeves," Vexthok announced the next morning, "I have a special final examination for you. The Nexus Wolf." The entire class went silent. Glub made a sound like a deflating balloon. "Sir," Pip squeaked, "isn't the Nexus Wolf classified as an extinction-level predator? 12 feet long, 400 pounds, intelligence comparable to your average tactical officer, and a bite force that can crack starship hulls," Vexthok confirmed cheerfully. "Perfect for demonstrating why humans need their precious pack mentality to survive." Jake looked around the room at his fellow cadets' horrified expressions. "Well," he said finally, "at least it's not another obstacle course." The arena was a circular chamber about 50 meters across with reinforced walls that had seen better decades. Jake stood in the center wearing standard survival gear: knife, water, basic med kit, and one item that Vexthok hadn't bothered to check. "The Nexus Wolf is being released now," Vexthok announced from the observation deck above. "Try not to die too quickly, Captain. I want the other cadets to see what happens to species that depend on friendship." The entrance gate rumbled open, and Jake got his first look at what evolution produced when it was in a particularly bad mood. The Nexus Wolf was magnificent in the way that natural disasters are magnificent. Beautiful, terrifying, and absolutely not something you want to meet in person. 12 feet of muscle, fang, and barely contained violence padded into the arena. Its fur was midnight black with silver markings that seemed to shift in the light. Yellow eyes locked onto Jake with the kind of focus usually reserved for laser targeting systems. "Here, boy," Jake said conversationally. "Easy there, big guy." The wolf's ears twitched. It had probably never heard prey talk to it before. Jake did something that made every spectator question his sanity. He sat down, cross-legged, completely relaxed. The wolf stopped advancing, confused by this unprecedented response. "Yeah, I know, right? Usually when you show up, things start running and screaming. But here's the thing, gorgeous. I'm not prey, I'm pack." The wolf cocked its head, a gesture so familiar it could have come from any dog park on Earth. Jake continued talking, his voice calm and steady. "See, where I come from, we figured out something interesting about predators. The really successful ones don't hunt alone. They hunt with family. And we humans? We're really good at making family out of unlikely candidates." He slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a handful of high-protein ration bars. The wolf's nose twitched at the scent. "My species spent thousands of years convincing your distant cousins that hanging out with us was more profitable than eating us. Turns out 2 apex predators working together are way more effective than 1 apex predator working alone." Jake tossed a ration bar about halfway between them. The wolf approached cautiously, sniffed, and took the food. Its tail gave the tiniest wag. "That's right. Good wolf. Very good wolf." Jake's voice carried the kind of authority that came from generations of humans who had learned that confidence, not aggression, was the key to earning respect from predators. Vexthok was pacing in the observation deck. "What is he doing? Fight back. Show some survival instinct." "I think," Pip whispered, "he's demonstrating survival instinct, just not the kind we expected." Jake stood slowly, maintaining eye contact with the wolf. "Now, I know what you're thinking. This weird bipedal thing smells like pack, acts like pack, but doesn't look like pack. But here's the secret. Pack isn't about what you look like. It's about who you trust to have your back." He took a step forward. The wolf didn't retreat. Another step. The wolf's tail wagged a little more. "Your ancestors figured this out millions of years ago. The humans who fed them, protected them, and treated them like family were worth following. Even into battle. Even into space, apparently." Jake was now close enough to touch the wolf. He extended his hand, palm up, letting the creature catch his scent. After a moment that felt like an eternity, the wolf bumped Jake's hand with its nose. "Good boy," Jake said, scratching behind the wolf's ears. "Very good boy. Now, want to really confuse some people?" The wolf's tail was wagging freely now, and when Jake started walking toward the exit, it fell into step beside him like it had been trained for years. Vexthok was speechless. The other cadets were cheering, and Jake was grinning like someone who had just won the galaxy's most dangerous game of fetch. "Oh," Jake called up to the observation deck. "I should probably mention I brought backup." He reached into his pack and pulled out a simple leather dog leash. The observation deck had gone completely silent except for the sound of Vexthok's claws scratching against the reinforced glass. Jake stood in the arena, casually clipping a dog leash onto what was supposed to be the galaxy's most dangerous predator. "This is impossible," Vexthok hissed. "Nexus wolves are apex predators. They don't submit, they don't bond, they certainly don't accept leashes." "Actually," Jake said, giving the wolf a good scratch behind the ears, "they're incredibly social creatures. You just have to speak their language." He looked up at the stunned crowd of cadets. "See, this little guy here isn't just a predator. He's a pack animal. And pack animals understand hierarchy, loyalty, and cooperation." The wolf sat when Jake gestured downward. Its tail was wagging so hard it could have powered a small generator. Glub made a sound like someone trying to start a broken engine. "But sir, the protocols clearly state that Nexus wolves are unsurvivable encounters." "Yeah, well, your protocols were written by people who tried to dominate instead of cooperate," Jake replied, walking toward the exit with his new four-legged friend trotting beside him. "Where I come from, we figured out that making friends with apex predators was way more efficient than fighting them." "This proves nothing," Vexthok growled, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "You used trickery, manipulation, weakness." Jake stopped and looked up at the drill master with the kind of smile that usually preceded someone making a very good point. "Let me tell you a story, Vex. About 40,000 years ago, my ancestors were living in caves, barely surviving. Definitely not apex predators. Then they met some wolves who were also struggling to survive. Both species realized they were better together than apart." He held up the leash. "This isn't a symbol of domination. It's a symbol of partnership. The wolf trusts me to lead because I've proven I'll protect the pack. I trust the wolf to follow because it's proven it'll have my back." "Ridiculous," Vexthok spat. "Predators don't need partnership. Strength stands alone." "Really? Then why are humans military advisors to half the galaxy? Why do we get called in when other species need tactical solutions? Why are we diplomats, mediators, and alliance builders across 1,000 different worlds?" Jake scratched the wolf's chin, producing a rumbling sound that was definitely not a growl, because we learned something that apparently warrior castes missed. The strongest predator isn't the one who can defeat everyone else. It's the one who can convince everyone else to fight on their side. Pip was practically vibrating with excitement. That's why human military doctrine focuses on combined arms and interspecies cooperation protocols. "Exactly," Jake nodded. "We don't just survive in the galaxy, we thrive, and we do it by turning potential enemies into allies, competitors into partners, and apparently, extinction-level predators into really big dogs." The wolf barked once, as if agreeing with the assessment. Thorn's crystalline structure was humming with what Jake had learned was his version of deep thought. The mathematics are compelling. Cooperative systems show exponentially higher success rates than individual efforts across all scenarios. But this goes against everything, Vexthok protested. Combat is individual. Survival is individual. Strength is overrated, Jake interrupted. You want to test individual strength versus cooperative strength? Let's run your final trial. All cadets working together, using each species' advantages to overcome challenges designed for individual failure. Vexthok's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting the entire class enter the Crucible arena together? I'm suggesting you find out whether your warrior philosophy or human teamwork philosophy produces better results. Jake grinned. Unless you're afraid your precious individual strength doctrine might lose to a bunch of cooperation-minded weaklings. The challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. Every cadet was holding their breath. Even Glub had stopped making nervous sounds. Fine, Vexthok snarled. Tomorrow morning, 600 hours. All cadets in the Crucible arena. But when they fail, when they die because they trusted each other instead of themselves, you'll admit that cooperation is just weakness wearing a disguise. Jake looked at his fellow cadets, then at the wolf, then back at Vexthok. Deal. But when we succeed, you admit that humans didn't conquer half the galaxy through weakness. And if you fail, Jake's grin widened, then I'll eat my dog leash, literally. The wolf barked again, sounding suspiciously like laughter. The Crucible arena had been transformed overnight into something that looked like the galaxy's worst nightmare had collided with a tactical exercise designed by sadists. Environmental hazards cycled randomly. Gravity wells, ion storms, acid rain, and temperature extremes that could flash freeze water or melt steel. Somewhere in the maze of obstacles, 3 different apex predators waited to turn cadets into lunch. Jake stood with his team at the arena entrance, doing final equipment checks. The wolf, who the cadets had started calling Rex because apparently even extinction-level predators needed nicknames, sat patiently wearing his leash. Remember, Jake addressed the group, this isn't about individual heroics. This is about playing to everyone's strengths and covering each other's weaknesses. Pip's antennae were twitching with nervous energy. The statistical probability of survival is approximately higher than it was 5 minutes ago, Thorn interrupted with crystalline certainty. Cooperative tactics increase success rates by... Guys, Jake held up a hand. Less math, more confidence. We've trained for this. Zara flickered brightly. Easy for you to say. You're not made of energy that can be disrupted by ion storms. Which is why Thorn is going to provide you with cover using his natural electrical resistance while you light the way for Pip's reconnaissance runs. Everyone has a job. Everyone has backup. Vexthok's voice echoed through the arena speakers. Cadets, you have 72 hours to survive. The timer begins now. The entrance sealed behind them with a sound like a tomb closing. Pip, you're our scout, Jake commanded. Fast sweep of the immediate area. Stay in visual contact. Rex and I will maintain central position. Thorn, your rear guard. Zara, stay close to Thorn for protection. They moved as a unit through the first section, a maze of shifting walls and floor traps. Where individual cadets would have blundered forward, their team methodically mapped each passage. Pip's speed allowed him to trigger traps safely and retreat. Thorn's durability let him test unstable surfaces. Zara provided illumination in dark sections. Ion storm incoming, Jake announced, reading environmental displays. Zara, get behind Thorn. Everyone else, low profile. The storm hit like nature's own light show, but Thorn's crystalline structure absorbed and redirected the electrical discharge harmlessly around their huddled group. First apex predator ahead, Pip reported, scuttling back from his reconnaissance. Looks like a decimator mantis, 12 feet tall, acidic claws, very angry. Jake grinned. Rex, want to make a new friend? The wolf's ears perked up at the suggestion. Pip, I need you to lead the mantis toward the gravity well at Section 7. Thorn, can you create a resonance frequency that'll disorient its compound eyes? Zara, when I give the signal, full brightness strobe pattern. They moved into position with the precision of a military unit. Pip darted out, caught the mantis's attention, and led it on a chase toward the gravity well. At Jake's signal, Thorn began humming at a frequency that made the mantis stumble. Zara strobed like a broken light, further confusing the creature. Rex bounded forward and did something that made every observer question the nature of reality. He started playing with the mantis like it was another dog at the park. The 12-foot killing machine, utterly bewildered by this unprecedented behavior, found itself engaging in what could only be described as interspecies tag. Target neutralized through confusion, Jake reported cheerfully. Moving to next section. Vexthok was pacing in his observation booth. This is not how combat works. Sir, Glub ventured, it appears to be working quite well. The second predator was a void stalker, a creature that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that didn't have names. It was nearly invisible, completely silent, and had a nasty habit of phasing through solid matter to attack from impossible angles. Thorn, Jake called, can you detect dimensional distortions? Affirmative. The entity's phase shifts create resonance patterns in local reality. Pip, can you move fast enough to tag something we can't see? If I know where it is, yes. Zara, can you create a light pattern that follows Thorn's directions? Already working on it. They fought an enemy they couldn't see using teamwork that shouldn't have worked. Thorn called out positions, Zara painted targets with light, Pip tagged the creature with tracking devices, and Rex herded it toward environmental hazards. The Void Stalker, accustomed to fighting confused, isolated prey, found itself surrounded by a coordinated unit that anticipated its every move. When it tried to phase through the floor, it found Rex waiting on the other side. When it attempted to flank from above, Pip was already there with another tracking device. When it finally materialized to attack, it discovered that 5 different species had predicted its location and prepared accordingly. The final challenge was the arena's ultimate test, a creature so dangerous that most species didn't have names for it, just descriptions like the thing that ended civilization on Kepler-7. Jake looked at the massive multidimensional horror that was currently trying to claw its way into their reality and said the most human thing possible. Okay, gang, let's show them how it's done. 71 hours and 47 minutes after entering the Crucible arena, Jake's team walked out together, all of them, even Rex, who was carrying what appeared to be a chew toy that had once been a galaxy-ending horror beyond description. The observation deck was packed with academy instructors, senior officers, and at least 3 species of war correspondents who had come to witness what they thought would be a spectacular failure of human military doctrine. Instead, they had watched a textbook demonstration of why humans were in charge of tactical planning for half the Galactic Defense Force. Vexthok stood at the window, his reptilian features arranged in an expression that suggested he was having serious philosophical difficulties. Impossible, he muttered, watching Rex drop his new toy at Jake's feet and wag his tail. Absolutely impossible. Sir, Glub offered helpfully. The mission parameters were survival for 72 hours. They succeeded with 13 minutes to spare. They didn't just survive, one of the war correspondents noted, her camera drones buzzing around the arena. They turned 3 apex predators into training partners and somehow convinced a dimensional horror to play fetch. Jake looked up at the observation deck and waved. So, Drillmaster, ready to admit that cooperation might have some tactical advantages? Vexthok's claws scraped against the reinforced glass. You cheated, used unorthodox methods, turned combat into some kind of social gathering. I used effective methods, Jake corrected. The mission was survival. We survived. As a team. Using each species' natural advantages and covering each other's weaknesses. But you're not predators, Vexthok insisted, though his voice had lost its earlier conviction. Predators hunt alone, fight alone, win alone. Jake scratched Rex behind the ears, producing that rumbling sound that was definitely not a growl. You're right, we're not predators. We're something way more dangerous. Which is? We're the species that convinces predators to work for us. Jake grinned. Look around, Vex. Half the galaxy's military leadership are humans. We're diplomats, mediators, tactical advisors, and alliance builders. We didn't conquer anyone. We just made everyone want to be on our team. Pip was practically bouncing with excitement. The statistical analysis is remarkable. Human-led cooperative units show success rates 347% higher than traditional individual combat doctrines. The mathematics are undeniable, Thorne added, his crystalline structure humming with what Jake had learned with satisfaction. Cooperative systems demonstrate exponential advantages across all measured parameters. Zara flickered brightly. Plus, it's way more fun than trying to survive alone. Vexthok looked at his cadets, former cadets now, technically, who were clustered around Jake like he was some kind of pack leader, which Jake reflected he kind of was. This is not how warriors are supposed to behave, Vexthok said, but his protest sounded half-hearted. Maybe, Jake suggested, that's because your definition of warrior is incomplete. He held up the dog leash. This isn't a tool of weakness. It's a symbol of trust. The wolf trusts me to lead because I've proven I'll protect the pack. I trust the wolf because it's proven it'll have my back. But what about individual strength? Personal combat prowess, the glory of single combat? Jake looked around at his team, then back at Vexthok. Individual strength is great for individual problems, but the galaxy doesn't have individual problems. It has complex, multi-species, multi-dimensional challenges that require cooperative solutions. He gestured to the arena behind them. You threw everything you had at us. Environmental hazards, apex predators, dimensional horrors, and we didn't just survive. We turned them into allies. Rex here is probably going to end up in the Academy's training program, aren't you, boy? Rex barked once and wagged his tail, which sent several war correspondents into excited note-taking. The strongest predator, Jake continued, isn't the one who can defeat everyone else. It's the one who can convince everyone else that fighting together is better than fighting apart. Vexthok stood silently for a long moment, watching Rex demonstrate various commands Jake had somehow taught him during their 3 days in hell. Sit. Stay. Shake hands with a crystalline being. Play gently with a nervous insectoid. Perhaps, Vexthok said finally, there is more than one definition of strength. Now you're getting it, Jake smiled. Want to come down here and meet Rex properly? I think he likes you. As if to prove the point, Rex looked up at the observation deck and barked once, tail wagging. Vexthok made a sound that might have been laughter. Very well, Captain Reeves. You have demonstrated that human cooperation doctrine has certain tactical advantages. Does this mean we pass? You all pass with honors, though I'm filing a formal complaint about your methods being entirely too effective for traditional military documentation. Jake unclipped Rex's leash and handed it to Vexthok. Here, consider this a graduation present. You never know when you might need to make friends with an apex predator. As the newly graduated cadets filed out of the arena, Jake couldn't help but notice they moved as a unit. Pip scouted ahead, Thorne provided steady support, Zara illuminated dark corners, and Rex bounded between them all like the galaxy's most dangerous therapy dog. So, Pip asked, what do humans do for an encore? Jake grinned. Oh, I don't know. I hear there's a war college on Proxima Station that thinks individual combat superiority is the key to military success. Road trip? Zara suggested brightly. Pack trip, Jake corrected, and Rex barked his approval. Behind them, Vexthok stood alone in the empty arena, holding a dog leash and finally understanding why humans were considered the galaxy's most successful military advisors. They had figured out how to turn everyone else into willing allies, even the things that were supposed to eat them.